we're back. We got the Tampa Bay Rays preview. Tampa Bay, interesting franchise to say the least. They've made something out of nothing with a lot of pieces, but they don't spend any money. So it's going to be tough for them to compete in the ever-changing landscape where the big-time teams spend a lot of money and the small-time teams don't. Are they playing this year at – they're not playing at Tropicana, are they?
No, they're at the Yankees minor league ballpark, Steinbrenner Field. So
okay,
or spring training park. Sorry.
Okay, so they're at an outdoor facility this time around. So that'll be a different environment for these guys. Do the factors of that ballpark change? Are they different from Tropicana at all?
Yeah, I would almost expect it to be like the A's ballpark for this year, where there's going to be a lot of home runs.
Gotcha.
Well, maybe I'm not saying these hitters are frauds, but maybe expect a little bit of a uptick in power from a lot of these guys.
That's a good thing to know. But Rays, comment below if you're a Rays fan. Not a lot of them I've met, but they're loyal. And they made it to the World Series in 2020 and have been a pretty successful franchise across this decade. I personally think they made some good signings. Danny Jansen is slotted to be their starting catcher. Can you tell us what to expect from the Red Sox trade piece?
Yeah, Jansen kind of feels like the Rays prototypical catcher. I feel like they've always prioritized the offense over defense aspect of catching, where it just kind of makes me think of Mike Zunino, where hits for some power, lower average, okay defense, nothing crazy, but I mean, he'll definitely hit for some power, maybe 15, 20 home runs. I don't know, just kind of a stable-ish part of the lineup, maybe hit in the 6th, 7th spot, something like that. So quality signing. I don't remember how much they got him for, but I don't think it was
I don't think it was too much.
I don't think it was some outrageous amount of money.
Another guy who I consider to be one of the better hitters in baseball just a few years ago, they got for the low. Eloy Jimenez is a non-roster invite. Do you think that he can make the team and maybe make it back to his old self, or is he just washed?
Yeah, I mean, look, if it's going to work for him anywhere, like I was just talking about with the ballpark, it's probably going to be with the Rays here at this minor league spring training facility. So it's a low risk, I would say high-ish reward move. I mean, there's no such thing as a bad minor league deal. So the worst case scenario is he just doesn't figure it out and, they release him.
I agree. I saw Eloy on the minor league deal, and, I was kind of stoked for Rays fans. I mean, that's a high upside guy, but if he doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. Alex Faedo, they signed him, I think, for the bullpen. I don't know much about him except that he played for the Tigers and he only has a year of experience. Do you think the Rays can polish him up a little bit?
Yeah, I think he'll at least get some looks for their bullpen. He was okay last year. 3.61 ERA, 1.34 WHIP. Threw a decent amount of innings. He's like a primary off-speed guy, so he throws his slider as his primary pitch pretty much. And then the Rays are good at figuring out what to do with fastballs with guys, who have good sliders or changeups or whatever it might be. So I think the Rays will maximize his value.
I agree with that. I like the Alex Faedo signing. And then the big signing here was Ha-Seong Kim, signed him from the Padres. If I recall correctly, he had kind of a blistering start to last year, was racking up WAR. I think he was number 1 in WAR for a little while, but then kind of fell off the map as injuries and the like happened. But I like this signing. What do you think about Hassan Kim? And you think he'll be able to fit into the lineup once he gets healthy?
Yeah, for sure. I think that the floor with him is pretty high. He's not like some insane hitter, but like it wouldn't be a surprise to me if he puts up like a 280, like 3 or 4 win season. I mean, I think the minimum with a healthy Kim is you're getting Gold Glove defense at shortstop, and that's never a bad thing at all. So I think it's a good floor signing. Like we were saying earlier, it's not really like the Rays to spend into the 7, 8, 9 figures, but they gave Kim like I think it was 11 million a year, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's probably like, if not like the second highest, probably the highest paid player on their team. But yeah, it's a good safe pick. Kind of goes along with like the Yandy Diaz, Brandon Lyles, like high flourish kind of players. You kind of know what you're going to get. But it works well because they have a young team, so they could use some stability.
Definitely agree there. I think it's always good to take maybe a flyer on a guy like Kim. You never know what you're going to get, and it's not too big of a contract to where they're going to be overpaying too much. They lose Jeffrey Springs and Colin Poche, two guys that really didn't have an impact for them last year, but two guys who they made into major league players. So they lose those bullpen pieces, but I think they'll be okay because they are very good at producing these pitchers and polishing them. So we'll see. But excluding Ha-Sung Kim, who might fall in to these 4 players, thank you, Fangraphs, for the projections. Our first projected player, and if you see below our MVP, is Junior Caminero, player, 21 years old, shortstop. They lost, of course, Wander Franco, who I was really sad for Rays fans when this happened because it finally seemed like y'all had a franchise player that was going to be there forever. Like maybe like an Evan Longoria. I know he wasn't there forever, but a type of guy that was going to stay like on a long-term deal. But then Wander Franco left. But Junior Caminero's here, and we both are very high on him. If you watched a video that we did almost a year ago, we projected Junior Caminero very highly. You're a Junior Caminero fan. What can you tell the people about what to expect from this budding star?
Yeah, I mean, the age is like the cherry on top to everything. At 21, and this is his quote-unquote 3rd season in Major League Baseball. That tells you all you really need to know about the talent level of him making the majors at 19. But, I mean, he's been doing it this spring, too. He's just hitting the crap out of the ball. He's going to play you a good third base. I think he could get away at shortstop, but they have Ha-Sung Kim, so he won't need to play there. But it's like 40 home run potential, like MVP level player. I wouldn't really expect it this year, but he can still be really good this year. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he makes an all-star team this year. So yeah, I definitely like the projection on him. It might be even a little soft in my opinion. Sneak peek to my friends in my dynasty league. I'm probably going to take him in like the 1st round. But yeah, he's hit at every single level he's been at. I don't know how the Guardians traded him and let him go, like in 2021, whatever that was. But like every single level he's been at, it's been like 900 OPS plus. And like even this year, it was kind of like a down-ish year. I think he was hurt a little bit, but he still played 43 games at the majors and was at a 724 OPS, which I think that's about league average, if I remember right. But yeah, fully healthy season. Like it's a superstar in the making.
Absolutely. Junior Caminero. Remember the name because he's going to be very good, and he already is good. Another guy who's been good for a long time, he's kind of dropping off a little bit, but if these projected stats are his drop-off season, then hey, we'll take it. Yandy Diaz. All I know about Yandy is he is an on-base machine. The past few years, he's gotten on base at an extremely high clip. A lot of walks. Probably the longest tenured Tampa Bay Ray, if I were to guess.
It's got to be close.
Got to be close. But anything to add on what Yandy will bring to the table?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably as stable of a player as you'll get in terms of a hitter. I guess this will be his 2, 3, 4, 5. This will be his 7th year with the Rays. Kind of like you can call it a down year compared to 2023. I mean, this past year, 755 OPS, 281 average, 14 home runs, like still pretty solid season. I mean, 2023 though is a whole different level. 330, 932 OPS, finished 6th in MVP voting. I personally thought they were going to trade him this offseason. He was in a bunch of rumors. Maybe the Rays are just being good business decision makers and waiting for him to, I guess, improve again, even though last year really wasn't that bad for him. But he is up there in age. So if he starts to regress, I wouldn't be shocked.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah, he is getting up there a little bit. It's always dangerous. You never know in baseball if hitters are going to age well or not. But another guy who's been with the Rays for a long time, it's crazy to think that 2020, that year where they went to the World Series, crazy to think that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But this guy was there playing second base, I think. Brandon Lau. I'm actually impressed with these projected stats. I know he's kind of off and on sometimes. He strikes out a lot, but he's got really good power. But what does he bring to the Rays at the second base position?
Yeah, like you said, it's a lot of power. I'm trying to pull up his batted ball stuff right now, but I think he's one of the people who could really see themselves take a jump in power at this ballpark. I don't know exact stats or anything, but I feel like the way that Lau is a pull heavy hitter, I think that could play well at this. A lot of his home runs are like right center to right field. There's not a whole lot of oppo power out of him. So yeah, I think you could see. I think you could see 30 home runs out of him this year. He's had 21 each of the last 2 years. So I wouldn't be shocked if that moved up. I mean, hits the ball really hard. You said he has a little bit of swing and miss, which is a bit of a concern. But if he stays around the 25-ish% range in K rate, I think you can see 30 home runs. I don't think that's far-fetched at all.
Yeah, I agree. Looking forward to watching. Another guy who I'm looking forward, there are a handful of guys that are like this that need a bounce back year, and Josh Lowe is one of them. Had a 128 OPS plus last year, or in 2023, excuse me. But then last year went down to a 98 OPS plus. So what do you think? Do you think he's gonna come back, or do you think he's gonna continue to kind of fade off?
Yeah, it was kind of weird because he's played a decent amount the last 3 years, even 2022. And 2022, he wasn't very good. And then I know a lot of people were high on him coming into 2024 after the year he put together in 2023, where 835 OPS, 20 home runs. I mean, that's nothing to joke about, but I just don't think he hit the ball as hard. The expected stats were way down compared to what they were in 2023. If you want to use Baseball Savant, he had a 14 run batter run value in 2023 versus 2024 was negative 12. So almost just a reverse of what he did. So I don't know. I don't really know what to expect. Kind of the same it's funny they have the same last name, but
Yeah.
kind of like the same prototype of like swing and miss, but they'll hit the ball pretty hard. So yeah, I really don't know what to expect from Josh Lowe, but yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if it's 900 OPS or if it's 630 OPS.
That really is interesting to bring up that stat. Another guy who I really enjoy watching on the pitching front, we could have very well chosen this guy for MVP, but Shane McClanahan. I always love it when a player comes back from Tommy John after missing a year. It's just very exciting to see because I've never had Tommy John surgery, but as a person who you've battled a lot of injuries throughout your life, it's got to feel rewarding stepping back on that field after like months of physical therapy and wondering if you'll ever be the same again. Or so I was happy to see McClanahan out there. He's projected to be their ace, projected to throw 159 innings, 3.34 ERA, 3.0 Fangraphs WAR. He's been an all-star the last 2 seasons he's played. But do you think he can return to form? And what should we expect out of McClanahan?
Yeah, it's almost like he's the I don't want to put it at like DeGrom levels, but you're just kind of like counting down of like, okay, how many innings is he actually going to pitch before he gets hurt? Unfortunately,
Yeah.
But he like when he's on, his stuff is so good,
Yeah.
and if he's healthy, he's like a perennial Cy Young candidate every year. So I just hope he stays healthy. I would guess they have him on probably not a super strict innings restriction, but some kind of limit to an extent. I don't think that hurts them a lot. I don't think they're World Series contenders this year or anything like that. And they also have the pitching depth if he happens to go down again. So I don't know. I just hope he stays healthy because he's one of the most talented arms in the league, especially from the left side.
Yep, I agree. And we can talk about this Rays rotation. They have guys like Taj Bradley, Shane Boz, Pepio, I think is going to be back for them. So they're very pitching wise. I think that this team is good, and we always know that they have a good bullpen. We can talk about the pitching, but we can also talk about we'll say a little bit about Pete Fairbanks, who is kind of the end guy, a guy who was picked in the 9th round by the Rays. Maybe not. I'm not even sure he's picked by the Rays. Rangers. Okay, nice. He's a guy that they just straight up developed, and I think Pete Fairbanks, the numbers might not say it, but I think he's a beast. Occasionally he has off innings and stuff, but he's a guy who throws hard, and I just like watching him compete on the mound. Anything to say about Fairbanks or the rest of their rotation and bullpen?
Yeah, I mean he's nasty. If you've ever watched him pitch, throws 100, and his off-speed stuff is pretty disgusting. But
yeah,
I know last year he was pretty much a Yankee, and then like some 11th hour thing hit, and the trade was off. So I don't really know what happened there. It could have been like a physical thing or whatever. But whenever it is that Fairbanks either is traded or is out of the closer role, they're not going to skip a beat. Edwin Yeda, ridiculously good. He's probably a top 5, top 3 non-closer in baseball, I would say. And then Mason Montgomery is like one of my favorite guys, and all of the Fangraphs models love him, like Stuff Plus wise and things like that. He's a lefty, throws, I want to say 100. Kind of a funky arm angle, hard to pick up. I like him to be a pretty nasty back end guy too. So they just keep developing dudes at the back of the bullpen, and that's just kind of the Rays way. So
yeah, those are 2 guys. Those are great pulls there. It's tough to figure out just from a person. Obviously, Vlad knows more than I do about these guys. I'm kind of just a box score watcher a little bit, but it's tough to see from Fangraphs like how good that a pitcher could be because a lot of closers just kind of come out of nowhere. or a lot of relievers kind of come out of nowhere. And B, Fangraphs isn't too kind on the WAR stat for pitchers, I've noticed. But we'll talk about the prospects because if you're a Rays fan, just like any small market, you're relying on these guys to be the future and to take spots of guys who maybe will leave in the future for either a bigger contract or, they're just the next generation kind of. Let's talk about Carson Williams. He's the number 9 prospect in the class. We talked about him a little bit before we started recording, but he's a shortstop. And when or how well will he do in the major leagues, Carson Williams?
Yeah, I don't know that he'll necessarily play a lot this year. He might come up at some point. I would assume that would happen if injuries happen and things like that. But I think he's not a finished product yet. There's still a little bit of swing and miss in his game. That's like the one flaw he has. He's a great defender. He can really hit for power. He can run. Obviously, he's a shortstop. But
yeah,
I think the swing and miss could use a little bit of or discipline, I guess, if you want to put it that way. Just a little bit more help. It's not like he's in a rush to make it to the bigs.
That's true.
I think a little bit more polishing can really help him. I mean, he's not a top 10 prospect by accident.
Yeah, I would hate to be a scout because you want to rush people up as soon as possible. I'm sure if you're a Rays fan, you want to see Carson Williams play. Like your second baseman right now or your middle infield right now. I guess you have Ha-Seong Kim, Junior Caminero, and Brandon Lau, but you want to find a place for him. I mean, you're starting guys like, I'm not saying these guys are bad, but Trevor Walls, Johnny DeLuca, Jonathan Aranda, Christopher Morel, who I guess has some upside. Then you got Richie Palacios, Jose Caballero. You would want to see your young talent play among those guys. But obviously, more time is always good to spend. Let's talk quickly about some of their other prospects in the 50s and up. None of these guys are projected by MLB.com to be in the majors this year, but who knows? Maybe. Xavier Isaac, power hitting first baseman. Any intel on him?
Yeah, he's definitely an interesting one. He's just like your prototypical big, tall first baseman who is either going to swing and miss and strike out or hit 500-foot home runs.
Moving on to Braden Taylor. First round pick in 2023, 66 overall. Kind of an older player from what I understand. Not that old, of course, but probably 22, 23. An older prospect. You might see him up this year. Do you have any intel on Taylor?
Yeah, he's probably the most like big league ready out of these guys, yeah. I would say, just because he was a pretty solid college player. So I think he's probably the quickest up to the bigs, maybe Trey Morgan, but I don't know. I think he's a pretty safe pick to be a good hitter at third base and play good defense. So I like him.
Completely agree. Another guy I like is Trey Morgan. We just talked about him. Guy from LSU. Might be up this year, but I think he plays the outfield, if I'm not mistaken. 93 on the prospect list, so a little buried down there. But will Trey Morgan be a piece for them? Would you predict?
Yeah. Besides Carson Williams, and you can you can make the argument for Braden Taylor. I like Trey Morgan just as much out of these other guys, but the biggest thing with Trey Morgan is his walk to strikeout ratio is pretty much even. I don't know if it was this past year or the year before. He actually walked more than he struck out. And he hits the ball hard too. I don't know how many like home runs he'll hit, like for home run power, but he's definitely a high floor hitter. If he's not striking out and hitting gap to gap power, I mean, that's a major league player. He was drafted as a first baseman, but they've tried him in the outfield a lot. I would imagine he gets looks in the corner outfield, if I had to guess right now, just to get his bat in the lineup. But yeah, I think this is a safe bet to be a big league hitter.
Totally. I agree with that. That's a great stat. You always want to keep your walk rate high and your strikeout rate low. I mentioned that with Stephen Kwan yesterday, how that might not be, the highest floor or the highest ceiling guy, but it's a guy you always want to have on your team. And then you got Theo Gillen, a guy who I think was a high school kid picked in the first round. If you have anything on Theo Gillen, obviously 98th overall, so not ranked too highly, and there wasn't a lot on him. But you know anything about Theo?
Yeah, and he's a high school guy, shortstop. I don't know that he'll stay at shortstop. But if you're drafted as a shortstop, you're an athlete, and you can probably play just about anywhere on the field.
That's a great point.
High school guy, though, like we said, so it's probably going to be a few years before we see him. But a guy just drafted this year, already in the top 100. Clearly, scouts like him. I'm sure the Rays really like him. We'll see how much they push him this year. But yeah, I would imagine he rises up ranks a little bit more the more he gets to playing in professional baseball.
Yep. All right, now to the record. Last year they were fourth in the AL East at 80 and 82. So even though they traded away all those guys, obviously they traded away Randy Arozarena, who was kind of their man. I know he was kind of falling off a little bit stats wise, but still kind of the culture leader of that team. They traded him away, still finished at a respectable 80 and 82 for fourth in the AL East. Fangraphs and us actually agree for once. We both have them at 82 and 80. That'll probably be missing the playoffs, don't you think?
Yeah, I just think the AL East is still pretty good. And
AL East is
I don't know. I mean, they're definitely going to be in the wild card race. I just think they're more of like a year or two away from being legitimate.
Would agree. And our MVP is Junior Caminero. Real quickly, anything that anybody that you think could, pop off from this team that we haven't mentioned yet?
Yeah, I will go to two guys first. I would say a little bit more of the baseball world has heard about him, especially this spring. Chandler Simpson, it's only a matter of time before he's their center fielder.
Yep.
He is like scouts have talked about giving him 90 grade speed, which for those who don't know, it's
crazy.
80 is the highest that you can give somebody. He stole 104 bases last year in the minors. And he gets on base. Like he hit like 330 or something, walked and struck out at a pretty even rate, and didn't strike out a whole lot either. It's not a whole lot of power, but he's going to play a great center field with that speed, and he's going to steal you a lot of bases. So that's a great one there. And then another guy who I really like for this year, Jonathan Aranda. He will probably DH for them with Yandy Diaz at first, but he's a guy who is a pretty highly regarded prospect. He just hasn't stayed healthy a ton, but he played a decent sample last year, and all his data and batted ball data was pretty good. His Savant page was very red for those who want to check that out. But I just think he's a good hitter. He might be more of a platoon kind of bat, but I think he can really hit against right-handed pitching for sure. He's a lefty hitter. So I would be on the lookout for him if he stays healthy.